else. And appreciation sounds about right. Some breaking news on the day we heard that Jack Lemmon had died at age 76 kept us from doing it then. But his career, spanning more than 50 years, is too remarkable to ignore. Last night, after a private service, Jack Lemmon was buried in the same cemetery as former co-stars Walter Matthau and Marilyn Monroe. In the last few days, critics have tried to nail down what made Jack Lemmon such an enduring and popular actor. They've written about his eyes, so intelligent and sad, his voice, energetic yet nervous, and his grace, an innate decency that stood out no matter how comic or desperate the character. He had another endearing quality, too. Walter Matthau once described it as quiet hysteria seeping out of every pore. Lemmon's ability to combine all that in comedy and in drama led to 8 Academy Award nominations, 2 Oscars, and 2 Emmys. Our appreciation begins where Jack Lemmon started, in comedy. Nowhere was his deft touch more apparent than in his role as a corporate patsy in Billy Wilder's bittersweet classic, The Apartment.
Jack Lemmon's performance in The Apartment is one of the great performances of modern man. It's a portrait of modern man, and it's funny, and it's heartbreaking.
She gonna be all right, Doc?
How many pills are in that bottle?
It was half full, about a dozen or so. You gonna have to take her to the hospital?
Help me, will you? Into the bathroom.
What are you gonna do?
Get that stuff out of her stomach if it isn't too late.
There's moments when he saves Shirley MacLaine from committing suicide. Shirley MacLaine's brother, Misunderstanding, comes in and whacks Jack Lemmon. And Jack Lemmon is so in love with Shirley MacLaine that he is honored to take that punch, and he's just sort of dazed and in love.
Oh, you damn fool.
And then there is Jack Lemmon, who's quietly giving you one of the most stunning, corrosive, funny performances of what it is to be a modern man in the late 20th century.
Billy Wilder made a number of classic comedies or comedy dramas with Jack Lemmon, and I think that one of the reasons why the films are so memorable is because Jack Lemmon was able to speak the dialogue that Billy Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond wrote with such grace and precision.
I was lucky enough to see Jack Lemmon around Billy Wilder, and the relationship was very much of a Lennon and McCartney, you know, or Rodgers and Hart. One of these great collaborations that it's in the air. It's in the air around them. In The Apartment, there's the classic scene, which is so revealing of Lemmon's genius, and it is when he is making spaghetti for Shirley MacLaine using a tennis racket. And that little moment is why he is so great. He is the master of the little moments. And in a world of pyrotechnics and so many huge, huge scenes, people still remember that small scene of a man making spaghetti with a tennis racket.
It's a performance of grace notes, and I think what makes it poignant is that we can see the feeling of this character without him directly expressing it. And probably the best example of that is the scene where he's playing cards with Shirley MacLaine.
I absolutely adore you.
Shut up and deal.
It's Jack Lemmon with a cold, showing you the most amazing love for Shirley MacLaine in this dark environment. And what he ends up doing is giving you laughs, giving you tears, giving you love, making your heart swell, and doing it in the smallest, most beautiful ways.
Well, Some Like It Hot is one of the great comic performances of all time. Lemmon seems absolutely possessed in this movie, possessed with the spirit of a woman, and loving every minute of it. And but of course, he was such a careful actor and such a consummate actor that in this role where he's basically throwing everything to the winds and acting with full abandon, it's still a remarkably calibrated performance.
One of the great scenes where Jack Lemmon is on the bed the morning after Tony Curtis has been out with Marilyn Monroe. Curtis climbs in, and they're both in kind of reverie from their nights. Lemmon, of course, has spent his first night as a woman, and he's got these maracas, and he's playing the maracas as he's telling the story of what's happened to him.
Osgood proposed to me. We're planning a June wedding.
The Fortune Cookie is a really great example of the pairing of Matthau and Lemmon. He's immobile for a good portion of the movie, and yet it's one of the most physical performances I've ever seen. And what he does just with the darting of his eyes and you know, the sideways glances that he gives to Matthau.
And it's the dawn of that chemistry with Matthau and Lemmon. And it's very sad that that odd couple is no longer with us. But you know what? Man, did they leave a great body of work.
It's all over, Felix. The whole marriage, we're getting an annulment. Don't you understand?
Odd Couple's, you know, one of my favorite comedies ever. I think I've stolen from that performance more than any other. Just the little offbeat things. I mean, everybody remembers him making those crazy noises, but just when he finally drives Walter Matthau so crazy that he can tell Walter Matthau is going to kill him.
As Ensign Pulver in Mr. Roberts, Jack Lemmon really made his first impression in the movies. But he did win the Oscar for Mr. Roberts, and it's just a wonderful comic performance, like a cameo that's expanded to almost be the star performance in a movie in which there were many stars. And it really, I think, set the tone for the comic performances that came later with Jack Lemmon.
Yes, who is it? Captain, it is I, Ensign Pulver, and I just threw your stinking palm tree overboard.
And one of the great other moments I think you'd have to say was the end of Some Like It Hot.
I'm going to level with you. We can't get married at all. Why not?
And again, just with the simple rhythms, natural rhythms of
matter.
comedy, he gave Billy Wilder the greatest ending of, some say, the greatest comedy ever. It's all done so simply and beautifully that you can barely see the strings.
I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
At his funeral service last night, there was only one quote on the program, and it was this: "Nobody's perfect, but Jack Lemmon comes closest." Those words belong to Billy Wilder, who directed Lemmon in Some Like It Hot and 6 other films. When we come back, Jack Lemmon, the comic actor, gets serious.
My name is Joe Clay. I'm an alcoholic.
What's startling about Days of Wine and Roses is that at the time, Lemmon had not really done a straight dramatic role. He had had dramatic moments in many of his movies, but in this case, he went from being a comic in many ways to being a straight dramatic actor.
He was really terrified to do that role. Here's another way that Jack was a great teacher. Because he was terrified to do it, meant he had to do it. And that after that, whenever he felt that kind of fear, professional fear, he would make sure to do the part. I think that's part of what made him great, is he really kept pushing himself.
Lemmon earned his second Academy Award for a dramatic role, this time as Best Actor in the 1973 movie Save the Tiger.
Well, Save the Tiger was a movie that meant a great deal to Lemmon, and he had worked on getting it produced for a while. And he played a character who was sort of down on his luck, a businessman who ultimately commits insurance fraud.
Sugar Ray Robinson and Tony Zale and Willie Pep and Greenberg and Ruth, Jimmy Fox, Red Grange, Davis and Blanchard, Rogers and Hart and Berlin and oh Christ.
Jack Lemmon had, in one way or another, been playing Willie Loman from Death of a Salesman in many of the performances that he had given over the years without actually having played Willie Loman.
You got the new leads. If you were given that, just hold on.
The Glengarry leads, Mitch and Murray told me, are to be assigned only to closers.
Yeah, hold on a second. If you give me the good lead...
Yeah, Shelley, you blew the last good one.
Oh, no. Yeah, hold on a minute, will you, please? I did not blow him. One kicked out. One I closed.
You didn't close.
Would you listen to me?
Glengarry Glen Ross, to me, was one of his crowning achievements. That it was that combination of unbelievable technical skill and incredible openness and vulnerability that he really mastered.
The most extensive and most intense character that he had in terms of that kind of person who is beaten down, who is trying, but there's this relentless effort behind this desperation that Jack continually brought to his work. And he wasn't afraid to be pathetic, you know?
You said no. You said 20. I said fine. Now you want to throw this 50 buck thing in. John, a good deal, a deal has got to be one. Don't you think we're both parties? Okay, fine. 20%, 50 bucks a lead. It's done. Let's go out. We make some money. I got bills to pay, huh?
He was able to really get inside of the despair of his characters in a way that was essentially wordless.
Where was he killed? In the stadium?
That as highly verbal as he was, and as sharp and articulate as many of his characters were, what we often remember most from the darker Jack Lemmon performances are the vacant stares and the looks that communicate without words.
I'll tell you, there's a moment in 12 Angry Men toward the end where the George C. Scott character is breaking down. And as I moved the camera in on Jack, and George was performing this great moment by Reginald Rose, Jack started to tear up. He started to cry, and it was totally real. And I could see that Jack had identified with a great many things in that moment.
In Tuesdays with Morrie, the scenes that required me to physically help Jack, put my hands on him, and he's playing a character who degenerates physically as it goes along and loses his use of his legs, then his arms, and it kind of creeps up his body. That's what Lou Gehrig's disease does in some cases. Carrying someone, when you're caring for them, especially someone who you love as much as Jack Lemmon, because we all do. That was very, very moving. You know, one of the great things about doing a piece like Tuesdays with Morrie with Jack was it was about learning and teaching. And he was absolutely remained a student of acting towards the end. He was always still hungry to learn the next thing or try the next piece. It was a very fresh thing for him. There was nothing by rote about it. It was he worked really hard and really loved doing it, you could tell.
All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie. The lie of authority, whose buildings grope the sky. No one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or police. We must love one another or die. We must love one another or die.
Success is that audiences saw him as one of them. To fans, critics, and actors alike, Lemmon was the everyman. His friend and film partner Walter Matthau explained Lemmon's accessibility in this 1988 tribute from the American Film Institute.
I figured my knowing him so well was the reason he always seemed so familiar up there on the screen. It's not. It's just what he does. He allows us to see the tragedy and the comedy of the world through the eyes of someone we know. Someone he hints we may even be.
Jack Lemmon broke the wall down between the audience and the silver screen in a very important way, I think. He was you. He was your dad, the guy down the street. He told your story. So you could look up on the big screen and see a guy who was speaking to you. Sometimes it was a diary of your own life up there. And you felt his stardom and you felt his power, but he was every man. And he could tell every man's story. It wasn't just, oh, well, that happens to Cary Grant, never to me. Jack Lemmon, that happened to you.
In general, I've been attracted, especially in film, to contemporary parts, because I think that I identify with them and understand the problems of the average person, because I go through them.
And I think he was proud of that fact. I think that he had his finger on the pulse of of something that was quite universal in terms of human beings' struggle to be here and go through get through a life with some, you know, with some amount of integrity and purpose. And you know, I think he brought that a lot to his characters. You know.
What you saw with Jack Lemmon is what you got is what you saw. He was that guy. He was all of those guys that he played.
There's something about him, there's a humbleness that anyone on the street, rich or poor, could walk up to him and he would spend time with that person.
I always felt privately that Jack Lemmon was my dad. If my dad was a movie star, it would be Jack Lemmon. And then he passed away. Jack Lemmon passed away, and I read this huge outpouring of appreciation on the internet, TV, newspapers, and I realized everybody thought he was his dad.
He's definitely universally one of those actors that inspired almost everybody to give it a try. I think it's, you know, I hadn't really analyzed that before this moment, but I think partially it's that everyman quality that everybody talks about. He certainly makes you feel like you could do it. He makes it look so easy that it sort of felt like, well, geez, I could do that.
I think what is meant by, when they talk about Jack as an everyman, is his ability to play such a wide variety of characters in both comedy and drama and make them recognizable. He and I used to talk about something that we both understood in a scene, which we called NAR. We would just refer to it as NAR, and that meant no acting required. This stuff is so good, just do it.
I adore acting. I don't just love it, I worship it. I think that it is a great profession. I think it's a wonderful craft that in the hands of good actors becomes an art, and a creative art when you're working with a good director that allows you to contribute, as most good directors will, instead of just saying, do this, do that, read this way, do that, you know, and direct traffic. It affords you a chance that very few of us in life have. And that is, we know that it can entertain, but at times, depending on the role and your performance, you have the chance to go way beyond entertaining. You have a chance to make people think.
But sometimes you hear this everyman thing and you wonder if it's a code word for, you know, not matinee idol. Good acting will always have a job, you know, whether you're 11, 30, or 70.
When I was in my 20s, I think if someone said, when you're in your 60s and then into your 70s, you're going to be more in demand than when you were in your 30s or 40s, I'd say, you're crazy. I'd say, that's impossible.
But you are.
But I am.
I spent half the day on the telephone. Now that I'm dying, people are taking more of an interest in me.
We kind of all feel like we know him, and we kind of do. He sort of is a part of all of us. And watching him, you know, pretend to die, pretend to get sicker and die, as he did in the course of Tuesdays with Morrie, was very affecting and very moving. There was sort of no acting required. You just kind of watch him and see how you feel.
If once, twice in your life, an actor can get a part with some kind of depth, he can go beyond entertaining, and he can touch people, and he can move them, and he can make them think, and he can thereby enlighten them. And I think that is one precious gift that is given to very, very few mortals, even once in their life. It is a noble profession, and I am damn proud to be part of it.
When we come back, a final word from Jack Lemmon. James Lipton asks all of his guests this final question.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive?
It's about time.
Not for his many fans in this world. No, for them, it's far too soon. That's our report for tonight. I'm Chris Bury in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.